Hello everybody, welcome to Kaizoku Dad channel. And before I get into today's or this week's deck, I wanted to say thank you to everybody. um the channel just got over 100 subscribers, and I am so happy. You start a channel hoping that it'll grow, but to see it kind of grow, actually grow with your own eyes, little by little, um it means a lot. And I am grateful and thankful for each and every subscriber, your comments as well, and each of the views as well. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Um, I put in time and effort to make these decks, and I learn a lot, and I hope you guys learn as well. So, with that out of the way, I want to get into this week's deck, which is the yellow Big Mob deck. And this one in particular uh, is from Daniel Brandman. So this was from an online regional that happened last week. Last week for me as of recording right now, but on July 23rd. So this deck got fourth place out of 1,008 players. So personally, I've been playing Big Mom a lot, and I think that's the deck that I'm going to use. I signed up for regionals, and I'm going to use a Big Mom deck. The one that I'm using is definitely inspired by this deck. Um, so I wanted to share this build with everybody. I think it's really great. It's a good take. What I enjoy most about the Big Mom leader card over Katakuri is just the fact that you can manipulate what triggers you want in your life, as opposed to Katakuri that kind of just relies on what's already in the life, and you can just manipulate the order of it. Big Mom manipulates what's the actual triggers that you want in your deck. So we're gonna get into this deck, and I hope all of you can learn alongside with me, and I hope you guys can pilot this deck at your locals. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into the deck list, and so here we are. It's most of it is pretty standard yellow. So like 4 pudding, 4 Parasparrow, 4 Linlins, um, and 4 Katakuri. I think where it kind of deviates from is a little with like the 4 cost rusher Katakuri. When yellow first came out, honestly, I wasn't a big fan of this card, but seeing how the deck kind of plays out and how in general you want to go second, you always seem to be kind of behind life in some way, at least by 1 life, and that activates Katakuri just really well. So I think it's a really good card in this deck. Despite I didn't like it because the condition of having less life, and also just the fact that it has no counter, not even one. That's why I usually kind of substitute this over Cracker or just another vanilla 6K. But this one's actually running both. And just the 6K right now in this format, I think it's very valuable. Just because we have a lot of like red decks that run Fire Fist. I think that's what it's called. It's an event card where it can like KO a 5,000 or less character and a 3,000 or less character, so it KOs 2 characters, but you have to discard an event. So Katakuri at 6K and like Opera at 6K kind of escape from that Fire Fist, unless your opponent has to use other resources to clear them. But I think 6K in general is a really good number, and the possibility of rush is really good, and also just the fact that you can look at your own life. Like with Katakuri, the leader card, you're always constantly looking at your life. Not so much with Linlin. You get to peek at the top card that you want to. Once you have 2 or less cards in your life, you can draw and then put something back in, but you're not exactly peeking at your life. With Katakuri you are, and it puts something at the top or bottom, so it helps out a lot with Linlin's ability. and it's just a good combination, and it makes sense to me now as to why you kind of want to run 4. But still, it's pretty. It's you still got to be careful, because this deck has a bunch of cards that don't have any counters on them. So we got 4 Perospero, we got 4 Secret Cost Katakuri, 4 Rush Katakuri, so that's 4, 8, that's 12. And then the Linlins, both of them's, that's 18. So that's 18 cards in your hand, plus the Thunderbolts. So it's like 22 cards in your hands that don't have any counter. So that's very dangerous, but that's typical yellow as well. And I think that's kind of why you're running for Shirahoshi too, because like if you can trigger her, or you can't trigger her with Linlin, you can place her on top. You can just discard all of these cards that don't have any counters on them. So that works out well, but it is something to keep in mind. But this deck is really good. It is built to go second. But going first isn't bad at all, right? You have the Perospero, you have your Pudding, and you have 2 Linlins. I think 2 is a good number. You don't want to clog up your hand. And with 2, it does come up usually. So, this is the deck list. I like it. You know, it's a pretty standard deck. My version, I think I only run 2 Katakuris. I think 4 is a little much. But other than that, I think it's almost the same. But this video is about this deck, so use this deck kind of if you want to build like your own big mom deck. You can definitely use the skeleton of this deck. It has some pretty good synergies. So, and then just build it to your own playstyle. Okay, so let's talk about the Mulligan. There are key cards that you want to see in your hand, and these I would say these are like the 4 cards that you absolutely want to see in your hand. Having them all together would be amazing, but 1 or 2, I think at least 2 of these cards in your hand kind of justifies you keeping that hand. We're gonna talk about, so if you're going first and having Pudding and Perospero in your hand, both of them it's an automatic keep for me, especially even if you don't have like a Linlin, either like the 10 cost or the 7 cost, it's perfectly fine. Like these 2 would just help you search them out anyways. So yeah, these 2 cards going first is a great combination. If I'm going second, I definitely want to see Katakuri and one of these other 3, simply because this is how the turns play out. You go second, you're probably not going to play anything, if we're being honest, and this deck doesn't really have a 2 cost that it wants to play. So your first turn on your 2 Dawn turn is pretty much, just draw and pass. Your opponent at that point, your opponent is on their 3rd turn. They're able to attack, and they usually do. And they attack you first, and you accept that attack, and accept whatever minions they play, if any. On your turn, you're at 4 Dawn, and you've already taken an attack. So if it's a normal leader, not a multicolor leader, then you're gonna be down 1 life already, and that's when you play your Katakuri, and he gains his rush ability, and you get his effect. The cool thing about Katakuri, and I want everyone to kind of keep this in mind, like his effect is very different from Cracker. So Cracker's ability is that, like, as long as you have less life, then Cracker gains an extra 1,000 as long as he has a Dawn. But Katakuri is an on-play ability. So let's take this scenario. The scenario is like you have less life, you play Katakuri, his on-play effect activates, it realizes, like the effect realizes that in the fact that you have less life, so it gains rush. And let's just say after you play it, you don't attack with it on that turn. you attack with a different character, and now your life is even. Well, Katakuri still maintains his rush because his rush comes from on play. The moment it was played, the effect saw that you were at less life, so he has rush. Cracker is, as long as you have less life, then his ability activates. So Crackers is kind of like an ongoing effect. And Katakuri, this forecast is, as long as you had less life when you played him, then his effect activates. So that's the cool part about Katakuri. And usually when you're playing, yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. So on turn 2, that's on the Mulligan going second. That's why I usually like to keep Katakuri, because in general, if you're playing like a mono against an opponent that only has like a single color deck, they're gonna attack on their second turn, on their 3 dawn turn, on your 4th dawn turn. This activates and you can just attack back or do whatever you want with it. So whenever I mulligan and I have a Katakuri and any one of these other 2 cards or 3 cards, I automatically keep. I think it's already a strong start. If it's just like these 2, like 10 cost Lin Lin and Katakuri, I keep. It's fine. You need at least one Lin Lin by turn 10, so that I think it's a good hand. But these 4 I think are kind of like the cards that you want to see in your hand, one or 2 of these 4. The 7 cost Big Mom is also one to consider. So if I had like a 4 cost Katakuri and a 7 cost Big Mom, I might keep that, you know. But the priority is probably the 10 cost Lin Lin. Okay, so your early game is pretty straightforward. You either have your pudding or you don't on your first turn, whether you're going first or second. First dawn or even or odd dawn. So, like if you're going second on your 2 dawn turn and you have pudding, and just play pudding, right? Followed by like Katakuri or your vanilla 4 cost at 6k attack. That's what you want to see. That's what you want to play. Going second, going first, obviously pudding, followed by Sparrow. So I put Sanji here, simply because he's not a. If you're going second, and it's your first turn, and you don't really have a good hand, you don't have a 4 cost that you're gonna play next turn, you don't have your big moms, you don't have any searcher, then play Sanji on your second turn. Just because he's gonna help you draw, to help you get to the cards that you're looking for. But if you already have like a 4 cost that you know you're gonna play, then I wouldn't drop Sanji on your first turn, because this deck is very limited with counters, especially 2k counters. So you kind of want all of them as much as possible, but again, depending on the state of the game and depending on your hand, you might want to play him simply because you need to draw. And if that's the case, go for it. Don't be shy don't shy away from doing that. But this is how you want your first turn to go. Searcher, ideally, and kind of like a 6k body. So Katakuri is the preferred one. But if you have the vanilla 4 cost 6k attacker, play that one as well. Having at least one on the field on the early game is pretty big, especially because they're not too hard to defend. Like if your opponent wants to kill them, it's really easy to defend with like a 1k or 2k, because they're not going to want to invest too much dawn in it unless they really absolutely need it dead. And in that case, they're going to invest a lot of dawn, which will allow you to kind of just develop your bigger guys. But that's early game is really straightforward. In yellow in general is pretty straightforward. It's one of those decks where if your opponent doesn't play like a minion that needs answering, then yellow will just play their big guys, not a problem. It's the game does get complicated when um, your opponent plays minions that are like banish or double attack. That's when you can't really play on curve. That's when you really need to think about what you want to do with the Dawn available to you, and how much you want to commit in taking out cards. So, or attacking face or attacking characters. So, but early game, it's pretty straightforward. Um, yeah, searcher or develop a body. Probably both if you can. Okay, mid game. This is where kind of yellow starts to pick up. Um, if you are going on odd turn, like you have you went first and you're on odd dawn, um, your biggest plays come at turn 7 with Linlin. If you're going second on even dawn, you should you're probably playing like a lot of 4 cost 6k bodies. And both, Linlin and Opera, or Linlin and Katakuri, playing them on the mid game and developing strong bodies on the board is the best plays that you can do. Unless, of course, and this is where it gets tricky, like I mentioned, um, you know, if your opponents are just playing like cards that will banish or double attack you, that's when you have to really think about how you want to approach your mid game, because so I'll just give you an example. Lately I've been seeing a lot of green decks that are running what's her name, that are running Yamato. I forgot her name for a minute. um so it's the secret cost Yamato from OP-01, with an effect that it's double attack and banish, and it's a 5k attacker, 5 cost. That one for yellow is absolutely deadly, because yellow is a deck that relies a lot on the triggers that it gets. Um, Yellow without any triggers in life is, it's an uphill battle. It relies on them because you can summon characters from your life, by using the triggers, or you can KO things from your opponent, like with Thunderbolt, or you can defend with Brule. So, like getting these triggers from life for yellow is vital, but when you have characters that banish, you don't even get the triggers, because they don't activate, they go straight to the trash. Um, so when your opponent is playing cards like that, um, you can't just simply play like on curve, um, unless you have like a bunch of counters in hand. But even then, like, it's better to deal um, with the board in some way. Thunderbolt. That's why I think Thunderbolt is really important in this deck. Having one in life, you can put it there with your leader, or having one in hand, because cards that banish, you want them out of the field, as quickly as possible. Um, Thunderbolt deals with a lot of those, so it deals with Yamato. It deals with there's a 4 cost banish Jailer Beast that is available to for purple players, for purple decks. That one's 4 cost, so Thunderbolt can deal with that. The only one that Thunderbolt really can't deal with, that's a double attacker, is Don Krieg. He's a 6k, but the at least with Don Krieg though is that he doesn't have banish. He has double attack, which is still, it's still really deadly and dangerous. Um, but I would take a double attack over banish any day, because even if they do hit you and the attack goes through, your triggers will still activate, and so that'll give you the opportunity to trigger them and maybe make a comeback that way. But Yeah, so that will happen in the mid game because those banish cards, most of them are, they're four cost between 4 to 6 Dawn cost, um, and it's right around the mid game. So play accordingly, and if you're not running into those decks that are running banish, playing on curve is pretty good too. You do want to maybe set up a brulee, either in your life, or just playing it from your hand in the mid game, so that when you get to the late game, when you're playing your katakuris and you're playing your big moms, you have something to defend with. Um, because like I said, you only have a certain amount of counters in your hand, and you want to use those counters during pivotal moments in the game, like defending a character that you know that you need to attack with in the next round, or to defend your life in critical moments. So, setting up a brulee in the mid game I think it's a great move. Thunderbolts, sending these two up in your life to kind of yeah, just prepare for the late game, because a good thunderbolts in your life can KO a blocker, from your opponent that'll let an attack go through. So that's what personally that's what I like the most about yellow, because you're playing in the moment, but you're also playing in the future, which is, it plays with the whole observation hockey stuff. If you watch the anime, but you're thinking in the now and you're thinking in the future. Every time you use your leader's effect to put a trigger card into your life, you're trying to read the flow of the game, and you're trying to think about, like, oh, this might happen, or I'm counting on this to happen, or just in case this happens, I have this in my life that will take care of that. And I think that is really fun, right? Just you're trying to think ahead, and I think, even if you're new to the game, or maybe perhaps you don't consider yourself like a really good player, and you think, doing that with the yellow deck is too hard for you, like, I would still encourage you to try it, because the more you practice thinking this way, like, okay, they're playing this deck, they run this card, I'm gonna try and put this thunderbolt into my life at this moment, because next turn I think they might play this or they might play that, or I'm going to put a brulee over it. It just helps you think about the game better. And I think just yellow, just the mechanics of yellow will just help you become a better player, as you think this way, as the deck requires you to think, in that way. So, that's a little off topic from the deck list, but I just want to, just throw that out there for people like that are on the fence on playing yellow. It's a fun deck. Right now it's pretty straightforward, because it's the first set that has yellow cards, so there aren't a lot of variety to the decks. But I think playing yellow and developing the mindset of trying to play for the future, trying to expect what your opponent is going to try and do, and manipulate your life to address that. I think that'll just make you a good player overall. But yeah, this is the mid game. This is kind of what you want to do. You want to set up your strong bodies, especially like a Lin, and you want to set up like some kind of defense mechanism to kind of prepare you for your big mom turns. Okay, so late game, really, there's only two cards that this deck wants to see in the late game, and it's like 10 cost Big Mom and Secret Rare Katakuri, which is the 8 cost one. Um, this is what really makes a deck, and a lot of players obviously hate yellow because of the 10 cost Big Mom, which is just on play, she gives you a life and she trashes a life from your opponent, like, automatically. And she is like a really strong body. She has more attack than Whitebeard, and Kuzan. So she's really strong. And Katakuri it's an interesting card, right? It's flexible, and it's a good 8 drop. It's kind of like a board clear in a way. So let me just read what it does. So on play, add up to one character with a cost of 8 or less to the top or bottom of the owner's life cards face up. So um kind of just let me go over some key points with his effect. So it's a character that's 8 or less from either player. So it can be your cards, or it could be a card from your side, or it could be a card from your opponent's side. Now you may be thinking, like, why would I want to take one of my cards on the field and put it back into my life? Like, why would I want to do that? Well, there's some cards that um work, that combo with Katakuri. So let me just give you an example. And let's go back to the deck list. Okay, you see this card right here, the Shirahoshi. So what her effect is: on play, draw 3 cards, and you draw 2 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. 5 cost, 0 attack. You're not gonna want to play this card from your hand unless you have a really bad hand. You want to trigger this card from your life. So let's just say you trigger this card from your life, and it's just now on the field, just taking up space. Well, with Katakuri, if you're ahead in the game, and you want to play your Katakuri, but there isn't a good target on your opponent's side, just add Shirahoshi back into your life. Like, it increases the life that you have, and it puts this, and you can just activate her effect again on your turn. So Katakuri is like a board clear, but in a way it also gives you more life when you need it. So I found myself like in certain games where I needed a big body, but my opponent doesn't have like a good card that I want to put on top of their life. And sometimes I just need more life to get to my big mom turn. Because I have counters in my hand, I know I can defend myself, and I need a body. So sometimes I just end up like katakuriing something like a pudding, just put it back into my life. I get it when they attack me, and I can use pudding either as a counter, or I can use pudding to search something out. It just depends on the state of the game, but that's the flexibility that this katakuri offers. It just like it targets things on your opponent's side of the field and on your field, and I think that flexibility just opens up different plays for yellow players, and I think really good yellow players will take this card, Katakuri card, and just make insane plays. So yeah, it's one of those cards where you can play around with and just be creative with it. But yeah, so, and the Lin 10 cost is pretty straightforward. You want to make sure before you play her that you either have enough counters in your hand, or you have your Brûlé blocker that will keep you alive. Because one of the big weaknesses with yellow is the fact that, like, if you get rushed down really quickly, like if by your 10 dawn turn you're at 1 or 0 life, it's not safe enough really to play a Lin, a big mom, simply because and you haven't addressed your opponent's board. It's definitely not safe enough. The cool thing about yellow that I like, I'm more of a controlled type player more than an aggressive type player. And what I like about yellow in general is that if you want to choose a playstyle where you're just focusing on, controlling your opponent's board and not attacking so much on life, you can absolutely do that, because cards like the big mom cards, they let you like trash your opponent's life while having to attack them. So you're not really falling behind if you're like using your Dawn to clear your opponent's board, and not attacking life. Like cards like Lin will just like trash whatever life they have anyways, right? And they're losing the board at the same time. So, you know, it's okay if you want to focus on like attacking your opponent's characters, as opposed to being super aggressive. You can play either way. Um, there is no wrong way of doing it. So, and the different styles are gonna depend. You know, if you're more aggressive, you're gonna add different cards, different yellow cards into your deck. If you're more control type, you're gonna add different cards to your yellow deck. But yellow can do that. And that's what I like the most. I like controlling the board. There's been a lot of games where I'm just clearing their opponent's cards on the board. Um, they're running out of cards from their hand, but they're still at full life. And now that I have control of the board, and maybe I have like two life left by turn 10, I can just play Linlin. I gain an extra card. They discard a card from their life without adding it to their hand, and it's just easy to go from there. It just becomes easy to close the game because you've got the whole board. You know, they've used up a lot of the resources to try and aggro you down, but you stop that, and that's what I like about yellow. But again, you know, they can be pretty aggressive too. You know, you have a lot of 6K bodies. Just with one Dawn, they're already attacking face for seven attack. You know, 7K attack, and that's a lot. That's if you're playing in against someone that's not playing Whitebeard. You know, that's like 2 cards from their hand if they want to defend constantly, and that drains their resources pretty quick. So yeah, I think yellow is pretty strong, and these are, you know, late game is pretty. It is pretty straightforward, but again, you know, there are cards that can disrupt your flow from playing on curve that you want. Um, but with Thunderbolt and your Brûlés, I think, and your 8-cost Katakuri, you can deal with them. And you know, this deck does have options. So, yeah, that's pretty much the late game. It is a straight, like, the deck is straightforward. The challenging part of this deck is managing your life and your hand. And on that note, I want to talk a little bit about life. Okay, so life, like I mentioned at the start of the video, what separates Big Mom from Katakuri, the Katakuri leader card, is the fact that if you're playing Katakuri leader and your triggers are not in your life, there's nothing that you can do about it. If you're Big Mom, then there's something that you can do about it. You can add them. And these 4 cards here are obviously the ones that you want to add into your life as much as possible. Now, there is order to these. So, in the early game, you want to put your Parasparrows and Shirahoshi, if possible. So, to do this, I guess let me talk a little bit about Big Mom's ability. Let's go to the beginning just so you can read it. So, her effect is Dawn 2, and when attacking. So she needs 2 Dawn, and when she attacks, you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand. Okay, so that's just adding a card from your life to your hand. Then, if you have 2 or less, you can add 1 card from your hand to the top of the life. That's the part where you're adding a trigger from your life, from your hand to your life. Now, the condition for that is to have 2 or less. So, at minimum, in order to use the second part of her effect, you need to have at least 3 Dawn, because when you have three life, not 3 Dawn, you need to have a minimum of 3 life to activate her second effect. So this is how you think about it. You have 3 life. You attach 2 Dawn to Big Mom. You attack. You use her effect. Her first effect kicks in, which is to add a card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand. When you add that card to your hand, then you have 2 cards left in your life. And that's where her second effect kicks in, where it says then you can add 1 card from your hand to your life. So then you add whatever card, whatever trigger card you want from your hand to your life, and you're back to 3. Okay, 3 is the magic number where you can keep swapping, um, without losing any life. Because if you start using her ability at the start, all you're doing is taking one. You're taking life. You're drawing. It's like your Whitebeard. You're adding life to your hand. You're not replacing it. You're not swapping it out. Nothing. You're just adding it to your hand. The swapping begins once you have 3 life. Once you have 3 life, then you can start swapping out cards from your hand into your life. But I just need to clarify that. And if you play it right, like if you're going second, usually by your turns, your 6th dawn turn, if you let your opponent like hit you twice, then you can start using her ability and playing things on the board. So it's not that big of a deal. But there are still ways to manipulate your life before like your 6th dawn turn, and that's mostly with like the Rush Katakuri card, because he can peek at your life. Usually, honestly, this is how I play. When I play Katakuri, I look at my own life. I prioritize looking at my life over looking at my opponent's life, simply because like you're playing for your triggers. So when I play Katakuri and I look at the top of my life, if it's a trigger like Perospero and Shirahoshi at the start of the game, I keep it there. That's what you want to see at the start of the game. These two. If I get like a Brûlé, or if I see a Brûlé at the start of the game, I put that Brûlé all the way to the bottom. I want this card to be the last card in my life, simply because the way you think about it is, she's like an extra life in a way, right? Because your opponent has to either like KO it or you block the attack. So having a blocker as the last card in your life, if they don't KO it, it's pretty much an extra free life. So I always put this at the bottom if I can, But yeah, these are Shirahoshi and Perospero is what you want early on in the game, especially. And the reason why I say Perospero is because like early on, if you can trigger him, you're summoning a character on your opponent's turn. So in a way, it's like a soft rush. You don't attack with it. Obviously, you don't attack with it during your opponent's turn, but when it's your turn, he's already active. He can attack. So it's not like where you play a Perospero from your hand on turn 3, you can't attack. But if you summon a Perospero on your opponent's turn, then you can attack with it freely, because it's already been one turn that it's been played on the field. So you can think of it that way. He's like a soft rush. Playing these cards is like a soft rush. Shirahoshi, just being able to draw more cards early on and get what you need, it's valuable. And like I mentioned before, she can combo pretty well with like the secret cost Katakuri. We can just add her to your life to increase your life, and also to put her on top where you can like just use her trigger again. Otherwise, whenever I have Shirahoshi in my hand, she's just a 1k counter, like, because I'm not going to play her. And if I use my Big Mom's effect and there's nothing better, like I would put like I would always put a Thunderbolt and a Brûlé in my life over Shirahoshi. Perospero and Shirahoshi may be interchangeable. It just depends. But yeah, obviously these are the triggers that you want in your life, that you want to put in. Late game, you're always going to want to put in your Brûlés and your Thunderbolts over a Perospero. If you're searching for 2k counters, it might be okay to put in that Shirahoshi into your life late game. Perfectly fine. But Brûlé and Thunderbolt are the ones that you absolutely want to start putting into your life mid to late game. So yeah, that's pretty much the deck. It seems straightforward. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, yellow's really straightforward. Turn 1 you play Pudding, turn 3 you play Perospero. turn 10 you play Big Mom, you know, like, yes, that is true. um but especially with Big Mom, you always have the option of manipulating your life for 2 Dawn, right? As long as you're 3 Dawn or below, and that kind of changes how you perceive the game is going, and you're acting accordingly. And so, in that makes it less straightforward how the matches go, and that's where I find it fun and challenging. Um, and I hope that's where you guys find it fun and challenging. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There are some matches where it's really like autopilot. Like, yeah, turn 1 pudding, turn 3 Perospero, or turn 4 Katakuri. You know, turn 7 cost Big Mom. Like, there are matches like that. That's just because like this deck is so strong that you can just like do that. But when you're playing against good players and you're playing against good decks, then it's not so much an autopilot, and that's where you can actually show off your creativity with as a player, and show off your skills as a player, especially Big Mom, so that you can manipulate your life and kind of foresee what's going to happen in the game, and adjust your life accordingly. So, and that's the really cool part. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of this part of the video. I'll be playing some games for you all, so you can see. I'm gonna be running this version, not gonna be running my version, just because I want you guys to see this version, and then just make adjustments accordingly to how your playstyle is. And that's how every video of mine should be anyways. I give you the decks that perform well in tournaments, but you always have to remember, like, these decks are catered to like people with certain playstyles, and perhaps their playstyles might not be your kind of playstyle, but the overall skeleton of the deck is there, and you can just adjust it to your own playstyle. Anyways, thank you for watching, and hope you guys stick around. Okay, so we're gonna test out this deck now, and our first match is going to be against a Law. They are going second, so we're going first with 2 Perospero and a Linlin. I think this is a pretty fine. It's fine to keep. I don't think I'm gonna mulligan. I think it's fine as it is. So let's just keep. We don't have anything to do first turn, but that's fine. Just pass. Okay, this is a good one. We're going to, yeah, we'll attack. They'll probably take it, which is fine. And then we're just gonna play the Perospero, and we will end our turn. We don't want to defend. I think we want to take some life here. I mean, I guess might as well. So we got rid of a searcher, which is fine. There's another searcher. Draw chopper. Okay, plain. Another blocker, and pretty standard Law stuff. Might want to search here first with pudding. Maybe we can get like a 4 drop. If not, a Perospero is probably good. We're gonna search first. We don't have a lot of 2K counters, so keeping 1 is probably good. I don't want to get Katakuri. We already have a lot of big bosses, and just depending on how the match goes, we may not be able to play them. But 2K counters are always nice, so we're gonna do that. Alright. And then just gonna attack here with Perospero. They'll probably take it. Honestly, they'll probably take all of our attacks, which is okay. We're just gonna float 1 Dawn I mean, we can just attach it. Oh, that's a misplay. Okay. I only meant to attach one Dawn. Okay, well, this is where things are gonna change. We're gonna use Thunderbolt on this, and we're gonna attack, and we're gonna use our Big Mom's ability. And we're just gonna put Prospero in there. Really changed everything. Yeah, but hey, he blocked, so that's fine too. Definitely did not intend to do that. So let's see how it goes. We used up 2 Thunderbolts already. Kind of want to save one for a 5 for the Law blocker or a Zoro, but it is what it is. I think we want to keep a board, so if he tries to attack it, yeah. We're gonna keep it. Next time we're playing Big Mom for sure. Okay, another blocker. Vista, that's fine. Tech Prospero. Okay, so he's trying not to take damage, which is interesting. I don't mind him doing that. Gets rid of the blockers. If he wants to discard from his hand, even better. Okay. Now we just play. Perfect. Okay. Not too bad, I guess. I think we definitely take that. Do we drop? Yeah, I think we'll play it like that. Now he's trying to go offense. Okay, we'll do that. We're gonna have to clear his board next turn. Well, I guess it depends how much Dawn he has left, and if he has another blocker. Him attacking might mean that he wants to end this quickly. We're gonna counter out. Okay, that's fine. We get a probably go cut a curry here. Sure, we'll go cut a curry. Okay, so that's 3 kind of Thunderbolts already, since one is at the bottom, so there's 1 left. We are definitely clearing board, I think. I'm gonna get the searchers out of the way. Should we leave the Vista up? Oh, he just disconnected. Okay. Well, the plan was to attack face, see if he accepts it or not. If he does, then I would just cut a Kiri Capone and have this board up. And then probably just Lin next turn. But hard to say what would have happened. But I think him just attacking meant that he didn't have much in his hand. So no, probably no Zoros, no attackers. He discarded this Law here. So, and he never got to search off with Bonnie. So even though we misplayed or just accidentally put more Dawn on the leader than I wanted, I guess we made the most of it. Okay, it's against the Kaido now. Hopefully this goes better. We get the option. So I think we're gonna go second here. Okay, so we have a searcher, we have a 4K, we have one Big Mom. Overall, it's not too bad. I think we're gonna keep it, even though I would have preferred Katakuri. I think, you know, Mulligan can probably give us a worse hand. This one's a playable hand, so let's not take that risk. If you guys like risking that, you know, by all means, but I like it. Oh, and we got our 10 costs, so not too shabby. Alright, so I want Thunderbolts, and we already have 1 2K. I mean, having more doesn't hurt. Especially since we're gonna put 2 at the bottom, but there's also Thunderbolts. We already have 1 though. So kind of tough choice. I think I'm just gonna go with the 2K. Okay, we'll take it. And see what it brings out. Okay, a blocker. Not one that I would normally expect, but it's probably just trying to keep his life as intact try to take not too much life. Okay, takes that one. We're gonna drop Opera. And we're gonna end our turn there. 1 Dawn. Usually like to take damage until I have 3. That way I can start putting stuff in my life. Okay, that is perfectly fine. So we're going to attack. We have a bunch of 2Ks, which is good. It'll help us defend against, help us defend our characters here. We're gonna attach, and we're gonna use Big Mom's ability. We're gonna take the bottom card. Another Thunderbolts, not bad. Put this one on top. Blocks, perfect. And then we're gonna drop another for 6K. Okay. Okay, so another one. Not too bad. They draw 2 cards, which is pretty annoying, honestly. If one of them goes for life, I'll accept it. Khalifa. Okay. This is a very interesting build. From Kaido. Okay, we're gonna keep these guys alive. And yeah, I'm not gonna let him die. Alright, so the option here. Yeah, we're gonna play Big Mom regardless, I think. And we're just gonna attack. All of our attacks go here, have him discard his hand or lose this character. So we're gonna attack first. See what he does. We're gonna do 3 attacks. If we can get 3 cards out of his hand, that's perfectly fine. I'm okay with it. So we've gotten rid of 2 Hawkins and a 2K. That's not bad at all. Okay. And we're just gonna drop this. Cool. You can keep drawing, which sucks, but we're more. I think I'm more interested in life. No. Okay, we're gonna defend here. Every time he attacks, he minus 2 Dons, and he doesn't have Onigashima, which is pretty good for us. Yeah, it's really good for us. Okay. Cool. So he has a bunch of cards in his hand. Okay. He has a bunch of cards in his hand. So I don't think... I think to get more cards out of his hand, we're gonna have to attack life right now. He's gonna need a bunch of 2K counters. He has a blocker up. Okay. Okay. He took it. What is this? I had 1 done. Okay. We're gonna... I think we're gonna big one here. And just go face. Okay. He has a bunch of Dawn. Or, I mean, a bunch of cards in his hand. I think next turn I might Thunderbolt this and try and push it through. And I think at least one of our operas has to survive. So we're gonna do that. I guess so. Alright. Let's see. We're gonna trash that. And put everything on Big Mom. I'm sure he has enough counter. I'm sure. But it's gonna take almost all of his hand. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah. And that is the power of Thunderbolts. Cool.